But
Is
I
there?
guess if you were to say what track would I want to win at the most would be, I've always said the top three, the big three, I guess they call them, Le Mans, Sebring, and Daytona. Those are the big
Yeah.
three that I want to win at. And that's yeah, Le Mans, Daytona, and Sebring. If I can check off all three of those, but it's funny because I'm a bit more of a championship oriented guy as opposed to a race win kind of guy. Yeah, like you need to win races, you need to do whatever you can to do that, but a lot of times races come down to luck in the end. And even if you put in your best effort, sometimes you might blow a tire, your engine might blow, somebody might crash into you, whatever happens. A championship tells a bit more about the whole team's character across the entire season. And so for me, yes, winning races are nice, and I want to do whatever I can to win those races, and I will do whatever I can to win those races. But championships speak volumes more than races do, in my opinion. So, if I can be 90 years old, laying in the hospital bed, saying I won the IMSA championship, the WEC championship, the DTM championship, the ELMS championship, all those big ones, that would make me a very happy 90-year-old laying on the hospital bed.
That's amazing, and I would agree. If you're not first, you're last, as they say.
That's right.
Ricky Bobby.
That's right.
So, Dylan, what is racing in IMSA like? Like, describe it.
It's Daytona 24 hours is probably the coolest one of them all. Well, I mean, they all have their different characters. So you start the season at Daytona, and like I said, each one has such a different feeling to it. And I would say that the two that have the biggest difference in feeling are Daytona and Sebring. And so you start out going to Daytona, the 24 hour. It's January, it's freezing cold there. You're there for 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks straight. So the weather's absolutely freezing cold, and you have this whole roar leading up to it, and then all your time before the race. So it gets you really involved, and you're testing in December or November before. So it gets you really involved with the event, and you really get into the zone for Daytona. And then you start to go into the race. And yeah, a lot of times you won't get into the car until sunset after the race starts. That might be your first time in the car. So you might not even drive during the day on Saturday. And you get in at night on Saturday, and the coolest part is those middle of the night shifts or the early morning shifts, because you go from driving in the day and even practicing at night or driving in the like 8 p.m. to midnight zone. It doesn't really have that very quiet feeling to it. Where when you go out, and I've heard other drivers say the same thing, at least for me, when you go out at 3 a.m. at Daytona,
Yes.
it just feels like everything is so quiet. Like you're out there, everybody else is racing. They're pushing as hard as they possibly can, and you are too. But there's something about it that just feels very quiet. I don't know exactly how else to describe it, but that's the best that I can do. Is it just feels very quiet. You're just out there pushing as hard as you can, and then you get towards the end of the race, and that's when things really start to shake down. And so Daytona has that kind of feeling to it of like it's the start of the season, you get really involved in it, and you have that relaxation period, kind of, or I say relaxation, but you're never truly relaxed, but the more quiet period at the middle of the night. And it gets so cold. To give you a reference of how cold it gets for the drivers at Daytona a couple of years ago, when it was, I don't know, it was like 30 degrees at Daytona. I walked from the RV to pit lane. It was maybe a 200-yard walk, maybe. And by the time I got to pit lane in the middle of the night to get in the car for the race, my toes, because the driving shoes are obviously very thin, and my toes were so cold, I got in the car and I couldn't feel the pedals. So I had to feel around and kind of do trial and error to see what is the clutch, what is the brake, what is the throttle, because my toes were just so frozen off and numb. I couldn't feel anything. And then when you got on track, I wasn't really using my feet to feel the pedals or anything. I was using my thighs to feel like, okay, where are the pedals actually at here? And so Daytona has that kind of very barbaric vibe of just being cold and a long race, an endurance race. But then the other one is Sebring 12 hour, and that one is a bit more just brutal on your body. I mean, it is so hot at Sebring. It's so bumpy. there's so much going on. It's humid and it's in the day. You end at night. It's a very, very long day. And Sebring arguably is a longer day on the Saturday than Daytona is, because Daytona at least you get to sleep in until at 8 a.m., 9 a.m., something like that. But Sebring, I mean, you got to be at the track maybe like 6 a.m., 7 a.m., you got to be ready to go. And it's just so brutal, throughout the whole day that you're racing there. I mean, the bumps just wear you out, the traffic, the corners. I mean, it's such a physical track. You're turning nonstop. Daytona, you have, relaxation on the banking and all that stuff. But Sebring's like you're driving and it's just the walls are so close, the corners are so tight. There's nonstop movement. The bumps are just jerking you around. So it's really, really just a very brutal race, and you get done with that race, and the next morning, I mean, some of the drivers you'll see them the next morning on the Sunday morning after the 12 hour, and they will just be like their backs just like peeled out of the seat, like they're just rounded over, they can't move their back, and it's so brutal at Sebring. So
Thanos wanted to pave the track when he first bought it, and all the competitors said, "You can't do that." Then it'd be a boring flat track. So you get lots of pictures of cars, four wheels in the air on a flat turn 17.
So it definitely has a very cool feel to it for sure.